Welcome to episode 65 of the Self-Care 101 podcast, helping you to overcome self-doubt and create a life by design with purpose, with your host, Puja McClymont. Thank you so much for listening today. I am very excited for this episode where I get to talk with one of my newest clients, Elissa. Elissa and I started working together back in April when we were in the thick of the pandemic and lockdown was in full swing. Elissa came to me about her career and some personal stuff, which over 5 months we worked through and made big improvements in all areas of her life. This show demonstrates how through the pandemic and also a very serious personal experience, Elissa gained a huge alignment to gratitude and its value. On a personal note, I believe that people come into our lives at just the right time, and even though I was her coach, I think I've actually gained a very special friendship too. Elissa and I had never met in person until lockdown was lifted and I was hosting some self-development classes. She came to my first one, not even my husband came, to show her support, and I think I cried a little at this beautiful exchange of energy, her gratitude to me and my gratitude to her. I get inspired by all of my clients and Elissa is no exception. I love her zeal for life and her ambitions. She's a true fighter, highly spirited and a real joy to be around. She inspires me to be better and even for me to stick to my goals, which is of course a bonus. During our sessions, we were supporting each other with our health goals and it was great motivation for us, so we will be continuing this for the new year. And if you hear her sing, well, let me tell you, that is a game changer. I'm really proud of this show and I really hope that you enjoy it too. So let's get to it. Thank you so much for doing this show today, Elissa. I am both humbled and excited because I know you and I can talk for England. So this is going to be right? So this is going to be a really good show. So I've just introduced you to the listeners as one of my wonderful clients this year. And you've had quite a year. I mean, I think probably out of all of my clients, you've had the most diverse year, lots of things going on, tough things, good things, you know, a really big kind of like jumble of different experiences and stuff. And I really wanted us to do this show because I think with everything that you've gone through, gratitude has obviously been quite an important sort of like foundation, I guess, to kind of keep you going. And I thought maybe we could explore that a little bit in the show. So
perfect. Yeah, let's talk about gratitude.
Let's just start with what are you most grateful for this year? And then you can go into your some context to your year.
Gosh, well, I think firstly, I just want to say that, 2020 has been tough for everyone around the world. Almost like a collective experience of, oh my gosh, So I think everyone's had a tricky year in some way or shape. So I feel very grateful just to have my health actually at this stage coming to the end of 2020. I feel really grateful for our NHS, my goodness me. And I just feel really grateful for all of my sort of relationships and all the friendships and the sense of community that I feel really strongly, particularly through lockdown. I'm sure a lot of people have reconnected and with people and just kind of been confronted with themselves and enjoyed like leaning into those relationships more. And I think that, that's just made me feel more grateful that I have those relationships in my life and my health, number one.
Yeah, no, that's all of the above. Absolutely. So, I mean, that's all really lovely, but you've had quite a trying year. So how have you managed to come to the end of 2020? We're recording this in December 2020. How have you come to the conclusion that you are grateful for all of the things that you've just said, considering the trying year you've had? And maybe tell us a little bit about the year.
Yeah, sure. Well, I had a near-death experience, which is always very sobering. And they do say that you have that experience and it sort of reinforces a sense of purpose or is a big wake-up call. And I didn't really have, and I know we spoke about this, I didn't really have a massive aha moment. I had a blood clot on my leg that traveled to my lung. and I had a pulmonary embolism, was in ICU for 4 days, and was told by the consultant that I would have died if I had not have gone into A&E that night, which was very strange to hear. And I think gratitude for me has always been quite aligned with spirituality. I think the two kind of go hand in hand just naturally, because when you're saying thank you, who or what are you thanking for this fortune or for this good thing? So I think that's quite interesting. So I suppose it probably made me think about my spiritual relationships a little bit more, made me think about all the things I still wanted to do. And I just felt so lucky to be in good care and being able to kind of get a second go at things. And then when I think about kind of losing jobs, and so many people have lost their jobs this year, and it is a really tough thing to go through. But I do feel like I feel more sorry for people that had to completely do a 180 on their career, and who have maybe been so embedded in an industry that's now been completely kind of demoralized and whatnot. And I think that it probably sounds like I'm putting a really like happy glow on it all, but what I think it's so much more interesting to think about how you can be grateful for when things go wrong and when things are bad. That's so much harder. It's easy to be grateful for what we have and what's going well. That's really easy.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I completely agree with you there, and I think we'll save this a little bit for later on in the show. But where we could probably talk about this or explore it a little bit more is talking about how we met. So we met, when was it? May? Was it May this year? April, May?
I think it was April. Yeah.
And I was very much struck by the effects of COVID myself in my practice. Lots of cancelled clients, and these were big clients, not personal individual clients, but they were sort of the bulk of my business, if you like, for the next 6 months. So it was quite a shocker for me, and I was just very aware of the sort of situation that other people would be in it, in that, because obviously no one could work and things like that. And I had been approached by a journalist to write, to contribute to a piece for the Telegraph. And I was like, do you know what? Let me actually do something, not just give you tips. Let me also just offer a free 30-minute call and to help people get some clarity with this situation, because I think you really need perspective when something like that happens, and I can provide that. And it was great for me because I did have loads of people, take up this call. It was great, met lots of people, very interesting, but obviously they were out of work, so I wasn't going to be converting a client. So it was very much out of the goodness of my heart. And then I took to my mailing list, didn't I? And I sort of said, look, this is how much it would cost to work with me. I've reduced my price if that helps anybody. And that if you want, you can make a donation as opposed to paying the full price if you could really do with this kind of support. And I know that you jumped on the email because I was like, oh, hello.
Sure did. Yeah, no, that was great. We had didn't we have the 30-minute call, and then I became a client, and it's been such an interesting journey, because in a way, actually, when you lose your job or you're made redundant and you have a global pandemic, it's not something I've ever lived through before. It kind of stripped us all way back. All the stuff that you think is important or urgent, you can't do it anymore. You can't make any plans. You realize we're all just having a human experience and we're not really in control. And I think using that time with yourself and sort of unpicking and sort of rebuilding my confidence, that was a really, really big one for me. I feel very grateful that I was even able to have that experience with you. And it sort of goes back to my earlier point about, I think people are talking to each other more, because do you know what I mean? I've really sensed that people are connecting. I've spoken with family and friends more on long conversations, and it's just, we were all so busy and whizzing around before. And I think COVID has actually just made everyone go, whoa, okay, what's actually important? And it's the simple things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, when we started working together, it was, it was a redundancy, right? You weren't working and you were thinking about almost like a crossroads in the career, like, oh, this is an opportunity almost. Let me explore my other career. And I wondered if you might want to share a little bit about that fun time in our coaching session.
Gosh, yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting when you have struggled between having a sort of a corporate career versus a creative passion that you have. And I've always been a singer-songwriter and produced music and toured and put records out. But I never sort of gave it 150%. And I think that was the sensible side of my brain being like, oh, no, go get a proper degree and a proper career and all of that kind of thing. And it was really interesting when we were exploring it, because for me, where I'm at now in this stage of my life, it's just about getting back to the joy of creating and being creative and collaborating, and not for a commercial purpose. So kind of just like releasing the outcome. And almost getting back to doing music in the way that I did when I was a child and, a young girl. And it was very helpful to have those conversations and sort of realize, I suppose, that life is a bit of a balance and it's a bit of a dance, and it doesn't have to be so binary. You don't have to pick, one or the other. You can kind of live in both. So, yeah.
Okay.
Good times.
And how is it now? Because you're in the stable, serious job, and you're pursuing the music at the same time. So how are you finding your creative process? Is it still flowing? Does it feel, because you've got a sort of a new purpose towards it, or is it, still something that you do need to carve out dedicated time for because your work is priority? How are you balancing the two?
I mean, anyone that's trying to juggle those two things will know that you have to be so organized with your time, and it's about prioritizing. You'll know that as a business owner, right? And I think for me, getting back to the joy of doing it, so that it doesn't feel like it's a chore. There's a lot of work. You'll know, being an entrepreneur, having your own business, having to think about the marketing, the digital campaigns, the this, the that, the PR, everything. It's quite a lot. So what I've been doing is just really diving into sort of photo shoots and music videos and rehearsing with cello players and recording in beautiful studios, and just getting back to the community aspect of bringing other people into the fray, and just loving that, and not worrying about Spotify streaming numbers or record deals that you might not even want. It's ironic, right? But
you're very much doing it for the love of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And realizing that you never needed permission. You never needed someone saying, oh, you're good enough, so therefore, we'll give you a record deal or whatever it is. And just knowing that just doing it is enough.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I think that's lovely, because we did talk about it, it was very much that conversation of, do you want to pursue this as your career? It's never too late to do anything. So if you want to do it, now's your time. Let's explore it. And make a decision that you're comfortable with, because otherwise what would have happened would have been, you would have kept going from job to job or whatever, for the next 10, 20 years. And you would have never explored the music and never really knew if it was going to do anything or be anything. And it was very much about exploring, well, what do you want from the music? Like, it's fun that it's nice and it's a creative outlet, but what do you actually want? And I guess this is purpose. What does it give you? What's the end goal here? What do you want to achieve? And I think I said, do you want to be L? Because then that's the trajectory and that's the plan you have to work towards and, be ready to pursue, and obviously to be ready for potential knockbacks, and the volatility of that industry is quite high. So you would need to build your confidence up for it. And I enjoyed exploring that with you, because it was, we were working with heart and mind a lot, so the mind was very stable job. I want to buy a house. I want to travel. I want to, this sort of, nothing wrong with, perfectly normal. But at the same time, and almost in the same weight, I think, your music was like, yeah, but I still kind of want to see what's going on there. And I like that you found a way now to balance the two. So you're still doing obviously the music that you love, but you still have that stability as well from work, which, you know, it's two completely different things, right?
And I think to not skirt around it too much, I think the truth is that it's so weird we're talking about this today, because I had a long late night chat with my cousin about this whole thing, and he was like, you know, why aren't you performing anymore, and really, you know, digging into it. And I said, well, I just got to a point where it was just too painful, actually. You know, it's a tough industry. There's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to, I wasn't sure if I had the minerals to put myself through that. And he said, but you love performing. And I was like, do you know what? I do. And I do miss it. And we actually came to the decision last night that we were going to book some shows next year. So it's funny that we're talking about it, because it's when you say, oh, what is it that you want? And I think when I was younger, I did want to be like the Adele. And as I've got older, that's not what I want anymore. And it's that heart catching up with mind, and the two meeting each other in the center and going, it's okay that you want different things now. It doesn't mean that you failed or whatever, but it does mean that you have to just be really clear and honor what you actually want. And if what you want is to just play beautiful, intimate shows and really connect with a community and an audience and put out music just for the pure joy of it, then that's totally awesome and okay.
No, I think it's beautiful, and I love your journey. Obviously, I was, you know, there, but it's beautiful to hear that, and the way that you found that balance between the two, like having the stable job, because I think that's where people sort of think that, you know, oh, in order to, like, my new tagline is create a life by design with purpose, and the reason why I've gone with that is because I do want the work to be uplifting into, like, the work that I'm doing with clients. I want it to be uplifting, and yes, you can design your perfect, your ideal life, but it's yours, so it doesn't have to be yachts and mansions and, you know, private jets. So we're not talking about that, unless that's where your money's at, honey. We're not talking about that, right? We're just talking about what's important to you. Like, stable job, stable income is important to, I would say, the majority of us, you know, because that almost allows you to do other stuff, you know, to explore.
I was just going to say, absolutely. and that's the thing, that without the stable job, I wouldn't be able to afford the studio time, or, you know, booking out a beautiful space to record a live performance video, whatever it is, or work with the people I want to work, the producers and whatnot, the musicians. And the thing is that, yeah, when you're young, it sounds so sobering, but yeah, you do need to pay the bills, and life is real. And when it's not just about you and you've got a partner and you want to start a family, you've got to think, right, okay, how are we actually going to sustain a livelihood? And that balance of trying to be sensible but also be super passionate and free-spirited, I think I'll always feel conflicted about it. And I think the struggle is finding the balance that feels comfortable and feels right, and accepting that will maybe ebb and flow as the years go on. But give myself the permission to do music, and it doesn't mean that I have to be this huge commercial success for it to have meant anything.
Yeah. And then I think, you know, when we come back into that sort of the complexities of gratitude, when you're doing stuff in your life that brings you joy, and even, let's just talk about work for a second, because I've been talking about another client, one of my other clients. She's struggling with the place that she's working in at the moment, and it's not really her industry. She's not quite gelling with everybody. She can't play the game, basically, you know, in this particular, it's a different industry. But she's really great at what she does, and she wants to give so much. And I said, well, if they don't expect what you're giving, why are you giving it? And obviously she's thought about that. And it was just the sort of pride thing, you know, ego, very, like, based in, well, I always do a good job and I want to do a good job, and, you know, this is my pride. It's like, okay, fine, but you're not looking to be CEO of this company or stay in this industry. But you do want to explore passions. You want to explore certain things and see if maybe having your own business is something that you want to do. But you have passions outside of this job that you do. So how are we going to create space and time to be able to explore the passion, let alone doing the passion, you know? And it was interesting because when she started to sort of view the company differently, so rather than looking at all the negative aspects of working for that company, she started looking at the positives. And what she learned was, obviously it's a job and it pays and it's stability. It allows her to save money, you know, in order to pursue the passion. It is a different industry that she's ever worked in. So she's growing. She's actually growing in it because she's learning new skills. And then because obviously everyone's got budget cuts, you know, she's sort of wearing a couple of hats, and those couple of hats that she's wearing is new territory. So she's learning new skills, which is only going to benefit her at some point, right, in life. And when she started exploring it like this, when she came back to session, she's like, yeah, so I'm totally cool with work now. I get it. Now I want to be passionate. I was like, okay, great. You know, but in that vein, she's now not negative about work. So therefore she can be grateful for the job that she has and the stability, but actually mean it. Because I think in the same way people might say, like with kids, oh, I'm so blessed to have my child. Do they really mean it? Because, you know, it's not a blessing every day. Like sometimes you do want to get a refund. Like, sure. You know, I'm telling you that. You can't love your children every day. That's just impossible. They try you. And it's the same thing. It's like, you know, you can't just say that, oh, you know, obviously I'm grateful that I've got my job because so many people have lost theirs. You've got to actually mean it, because you're not just being grateful. It's not just something you just say to, I don't know, to placate or to get X amount of likes on social media. You've got to mean it. It's got to come from
really feel it.
Yeah. And that's when we were doing the work together, you and me. I was really pushing you because it was like a real passion project for you. And you had an opportunity because you obviously at the crossroads and COVID, you know, pandemic and time, to take that opportunity to really genuinely explore it and find out from your heart where you wanted to go, you know?
Yeah. Oh man, I really resonate with what your other client was saying about this thing of the job. It's really tough because I think that we're kind of sold this idea that there's this great job out there for us, there's this great tribe that we've just got to burrow through and find it. And I think the expectations of having things sorted by now, I was talking about this with a girlfriend the other day, is just the weight of the pressure is just, it's enormous. And I find like the comparison game.
You're in your mid-30s, right?
Yes. Yeah, early 30s, yeah. Looking down the lens of mid-30s, woohoo! And no, that's fine. Do you know what? I used to have a really funny thing about age, and now I it's going to sound cliche, but I feel so grateful to be the age I am. Just because of all the... Seriously, I'm not like, oh, I'm not 21 anymore. I'm like, no, I'm 33. Yes. And I'm getting better each year.
Yeah, no, now that I'm 40, I really wouldn't mind being 33 again.
Right, okay.
I wouldn't mind being 33 again. I liked 33.
The grass is always greener, right?
Yeah.
You're only in your 40s.
I know, but it's a good thing that you mentioned that, actually, about that sort of that whole, you know, you reach a certain age and there's expectations, societal expectations, things that, you know, obviously it's like plastered left, right and centre to you, isn't it, on socials, advertising, etc. That hasn't quite changed about what you should be doing when. And I accept that we do have the time limit in terms of biological children. I get that, and that does start the process of feeling like you're running out of time. And you probably know this from talking to me, but you know, when it comes to children, it's like, well, explore the practicalities of what you're talking about, because if you really want children but you don't have a partner, you could go to a sperm bank, you could go down that route. That is an option.
I know,
you know, it sounds funny, but we have the technology and the ability. So if you're a woman who really wants to have kids and it's the children that you want, it is possible for you to do so if time is sort of running against you, of course. You know, I know it costs money, don't get me wrong, right? But then on the other hand, there's also so many children who don't have parents, or, you know, who have parents but are vulnerable. So there are other ways to view things, and that's very much, obviously, you know what I'm like. Everything's about perspective and looking at different perspectives, and then coming back to yourself and going, what do I actually want? Do I want the child, or do I want the family? Do I want a boyfriend, or do I want this, or and really asking yourself, rather than the templates that we were obviously shown as kids through advertising. I mean, we still see it. Come on, like even all the Christmas ads, they're trying to be diverse and all of that. Sorry, that would be another show. They're trying to be diverse, and kudos to them for trying, but it's still painting a picture of one type of scenario, that it is family coming together at home for Christmas, when there is a huge percentage of people that don't have that. So I find that
absolutely.
So what you're saying about needing to meet these what you call them expectations, I guess, is a lot of pressure. And then you start getting into that negative thought pattern, not you, but the royal you, start getting into that negative thought pattern of, my life is rubbish, I have nothing, I've not achieved anything, confidence dips. And then to try and be grateful, it can feel impossible to feel grateful, because you're like, well, I haven't done this yet, and I haven't bought my house yet, I'm not married yet, and I've not done this, so therefore my life doesn't count, which, you're not arguing.
And I think as well that I think it takes a lot of work and self-awareness to not subscribe to all those templates, right? And those expectations, and to say, do you know what? I'm not going to measure myself as a person by all these tick boxes. And I'm actually going to rewrite the rule book of what a rich life looks like for me. Because it would be so boring if we all had the same cookie cutter, existence. And actually I've found, and particularly through traveling and just trying to be more open to different perspectives, as you say, there's just so much more vibrancy and richness in all the different kinds of human experience that isn't the 2 up, 2 down, the 2 kids. That's not going to be right for everyone. And it's not what everyone wants. So let's just chill out.
Yeah. But it takes a lot of courage and, like you say, self-awareness, but even courage within yourself to go against the grain and almost rebel against societal expectations. And society can be your parents, so you're going to feel that closeness and that pressure. But I always say this, so long as you're not hurting anybody, like out of malice, like going out of your way to hurt somebody as a way to live the life that you truly want, then what is really stopping you? It's just you. It's your fears, your doubts, your confidence. So work on that. Be okay with that. Be okay with your decision to explore whatever you want to do. Then when people, it's like with you with the music, you've explored what you're doing with the music and why you're doing it. So you now have a clear vision as to why you're doing it, why you spend time on it. And therefore, when you're having that conversation with your cousin about doing gigs and stuff, you can confidently respond and go, no, I'm cool with this. This is what I'm happy to do. But I'm okay for like a bit of cherry on top here and there. I'm open to it. So then to do the gigs, it might not have been in the original plan for you with regards to the work that we did together, but it's not going to be harmful in any way. So why not? And then you approach it very differently, and you get to enjoy the whole process, which then becomes that whole equation of happiness that, it's not the destination. You're already in the destination.
Yeah. And that is so kind of, well, for me anyway, that's really embedded in that idea of you gain so much from what doesn't go right than you do from what goes right. And so if you just park the roadmap for a second and just decide to kind of surrender to the ebb and flow of the way things are going to pan out for you, and the deck of cards that are going to be the hand of cards you're going to have, life just gets so much sweeter. And I have noticed a real shift in the last few years. The more it's so cliche, but that's why it's a cliche, because
it's a gratitude show, so you can be as cliche as you want. Go for it.
I'm trying so hard not to go completely woohoo. I'm holding back, but But the more you let go, honestly, the sweeter the ride is, because there's a real humility when things don't go your way and on your time schedule. And that can feel like such a failure. And you think, well, how can I be grateful? But it kind of demands you to be grateful for all the things that we take for granted that are so huge to other people. Warm bed, roof, meal, connection, all that stuff. What more do you want? We're in such a time of wanting more and more. I'm really trying to live in a place of wanting and needing less, because I just feel like it just clears so much noise out of the way.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the fact that you were talking about, it's cliche, and I don't want to go too woo and stuff like that. And it really bothers me that these sorts of topics are cliche, because they're not really. They've been branded as cliche because it doesn't fit the capitalist mold, but essentially it's just a way of being. And at the top of the show, you said about gratitude being a form of spirituality and linking it together. Now, for me, that is one part of it, and I'm a spiritual person, so I hear you on that. But if we're being scientific about it, for those who need that side of things, all you're actually doing when you say about, who am I thanking when, I'm saying thank you or being grateful, well, you're thanking yourself. And it's basically you are reminding your brain to remember the good things, because the way the actual, anatomy of the brain works is that a negative thought gets amplified and more airtime essentially in your brain than a positive one. And with 60,000 thoughts a day, if even 5 of those are negative and only 2 are positive, it's the negative that overtakes. And that's why gratitude is such an important tool, I guess, we could all use in our lives, especially obviously in a time like this. This is a really great year to use or bring gratitude into your life, and not be so, it doesn't need to be, my God, you know about me, but it doesn't need to be something so existential. It's just a simple, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning and that there's coffee in the cupboard and milk in the fridge is enough, because what you're doing there is you're telling your brain, I know things are tough, but I do have food in the fridge. I do have a roof over my head. I have the warmth of this tea and my clothes and my everything else. So I'm ready for the day. Like, I can take it. I can take it. Bring it on. I can take it. And that's all you're doing. You're just essentially training your brain to live in a more glass half full state than in a more negative state. And it protects your mental well-being, because negativity is all around us. I mean, anything can like put you in a off mood, of course. But if there's enough gratitude, or even if you can, like, this is where it's really important to close the day with gratitude, especially because when you have had a tough day, after a tough day, if you can qualify 3 things that you are grateful for, big or small, that changes it shifts the energy completely. You sleep more
100%.
soundly, right? Because otherwise you'll go to bed with worry and stress and anxiety of the challenging day that you had. But if you actually pause and consider what was good about your day, it changes the vibe completely.
Let me throw a question out to you then. So
I told you not to make me work hard.
No, but I'm curious, because I know what I think about this, but I'm curious as to what you think about this. So I read something a while ago, and it was around the concept of forgiveness, right? And it said that there are 2 tiers to forgiveness. So the first one is you forgive yourself and you forgive the person or the situation that has harmed you, betrayed you, whatever it is. And then the second tier, which most people don't get to, is being grateful that it happened. And being grateful that you met this person that lied, left, stole, cheated, whatever it is. And that's really stuck with me, that notion, particularly the last sort of 6-7 years of my life. And so my question to you is, firstly, do you think you've reached that tier 2 level of gratitude when it comes to actually thanking a harmful or bad experience? And then second part is, so how do you be grateful when bad things happen?
Yeah, that's not a hard question, so I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Good.
So have I got to that point of being grateful when, something bad happens? me personally, for the most part, yes. I think for me, it's very dependent on the person who's doing the harming. So if it's an acquaintance, somebody who I don't necessarily have a strong, deep bond with, it's not going, I'll be able to get over that a lot more quickly and can be grateful for the pain that was caused. But if it's somebody who I love and want more from, or want, expect more from, then it takes a while to get to that place of gratitude. And what I was going to say was, I think there's one more step that's required before you can be grateful for your pain. And that is that you need to know the lesson that has been created as a result of that painful experience. So, for instance, I recently lost a load of money by hiring a marketing agency who just didn't deliver. And now the way I view money is that you can make more. Like, it's not my blood. It's not harmed physically anybody. It's just put me out $2,000, which hurts when you're not in like got thousands and thousands of pounds in the bank. Of course it hurts, but I know I can make more money. So my attachment with the money side is very low. It's not as harsh. But what hurt me in that situation was the trust that I had put into the owner of the company, and what I felt he was giving me back with his time, conversations we were having. It sounded like he really wanted to help me, and he really wanted me to achieve what I had set out for my goals. And so I was there in this partnership. I'd sort of given my heart to him and the company and really trusted. And then very quickly I realized there was something off. It wasn't working. Let him know. And he just kept placating me. And because I'd already built that trust, I was allowing him to carry on placating me because I trusted him. And then at the end of it, I said, look, I really can't work with the company. I'm really sorry. I think you really get me. And it's such a shame that it's just not being translated by your team. And his response was a little bit harsh. He was sort of trying to put the blame on me. And I was like, look, I can accept blame. If I'm being a difficult client, that's cool. At the end of the day, this isn't working. So we shouldn't waste each other's time, and we should just move on. And then when it came to sort of getting my money back, because I had paid up front, I was like, I just expected him to meet me halfway. I did. I didn't expect the full amount back. And I even said, you don't have to give the full amount back, but I would appreciate some of it back. And he didn't. They didn't. They ended up turning it around saying, you actually owe us money. And I was like, oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. And it hurt me. It actually hurt me, because I had trusted in a company with my company, my business, my baby, what's precious to me. And they acted like that. And I cried. I'm not going to lie. I cried so hard when I received the email. And I thought, I was so annoyed at myself. I was annoyed that I paid up front, because I was showing integrity on my side, because I wasn't paying the full amount. So I said, like, if I pay you, a big lump sum up front, then at least you know how committed I am and stuff. So I was actually coming from a really good place. And then for them not to give anything back, it really, really hurts, like personally hurt. And I did cry. And I was like, what am I going to do now and stuff? And this is the problem with being a coach. You can coach yourself out of a situation very quickly. So I couldn't even allow myself to wallow in that self-pity. I very, very quickly, honestly, 3 days, I allowed myself 3 days. The first day I cried. The second day I was swearing at them and cursing anything and everything about their lives and their business. And then the third day I was like, right, what are my options, my legal options? And once I had all of that done, I was in a position to know what I could and couldn't do and how I was going to choose to move forward from this. And the biggest lesson for me was being too trusting in that situation. I trusted And it's a shame, because I think it's a beautiful trait to be able to trust other people.
Absolutely.
But I trusted too much. So that was my lesson. I trusted too much. The obvious lesson was also paying up front like an idiot. But, that's by the by, like I said, how I feel about money. And then once I'd learned that lesson, I was grateful for the experience, because it got me to get more intuitive about my work and what I needed support on. I have found somebody who now works for me, and she is incredible, and I couldn't have asked for anyone better. I have found more confidence, I guess, within myself as a business owner, and what I will and won't take, and things like that. So, but it's been a journey, So I would say that there's an extra step. You need to know the lesson before you can get to that.
100%. And I think that it just makes it more interesting for me anyway, when I think about, okay, well, it's easy to be grateful for what you have and what's going right. What about when things aren't going right and all that kind of jazz? And the thing that you get out of it when you've reached that second and third tier is that kind of, what I found, like, just an enormous amount of self-respect, because you've overcome something, survived something, or you've just grown from something. And that ties back into what's the lesson. And it makes it so much, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's thinking too big here, but it's, for me, when something really, I'm going to swear, won't, bad happens, it's so easy to be so, oh, poor me, and, really get into that victim mentality. And I have found that that's just not helpful to stay in that space. So I want to get out of that space quite quickly and see, okay, but what have I learned from this? Okay, maybe I've learned that it's a good thing to know that people lie and steal and betray and all of that, because until you've actually experienced it, you don't know it to be true. And until you've had that human experience, you don't know it to be true. So therefore, it's like this kind of idea, oh, people lie. When you've been lied to by someone you love, it's a whole other ball game. Yeah. And I think some of what we've said might be hard for people to digest, because, when something really atrocious happens, I totally respect that people will be thinking, I didn't learn anything from that. That was awful what happened to me. And I'm certainly not grateful to the person or the situation. But I always try and think, well, if I might end up in the place where I'm more resilient, I'm stronger, I love myself more, or I have more respect, or just admiration for getting through it, then you've landed somewhere quite powerful in that gratitude circle, which I think is really cool.
No, 100%. I completely agree with what you're saying. I think it was beautifully put. I think where the difference is, because obviously if something really devastating happens, let's say you're made homeless because you've lost your job, you're not able to pay your bills, you're reduced to that. At that moment, you're not going to feel the lesson, and you're certainly not going to appreciate it, right? But there's going to be a time, whether it's even just going into a shelter at Christmas time, and within that moment, if you choose to take it, because it's mindset, it's how things affect, things are going to affect everybody differently. Our mental well-being is, not everybody has the mental strength, so it's going to be harder for some people. But if you're in that, and I'm using a very extreme example, but if you're then in a shelter at Christmas time and you're having a warm meal and you've got a bed and things like that, there's your moment there to choose the lesson of, how can I get myself in a better position, or what can I do? What help is out there for me? Or am I okay doing this? There's been many shows about people being homeless who are happy about that situation. That's what they want to be, which is fine. That's their bag. But I think when you're in that bad situation, it's hard to see the lesson, but you've also got to kind of approach life as a constant learning, as a constant lesson. And that is a whole mindset shift. And when you do that, then when something bad happens to you, you can quickly go, I can't see the lesson yet, but I'll give it a minute. And then let time, do its thing, have some healing, go through the pain, etc. And then when you come out the other side, because your mindset was already in that, well, everything is a learning opportunity. Everything is a lesson. Everything has a reason for happening. Let me see what that reason is. And sometimes you don't see that reason for years. You know, it can be years until you actually see the lesson, and something will happen 10 years later and you're like, oh, see, now I know what the red flags are. Because now if I hire another business, I know the red flags, and I just will never do it again. I just won't do it again. It will never happen. I just won't work with you.
And you know what? I don't know if you've heard this before. I absolutely love it. This thing of you'll get the same lesson over and over again until you get it. You know, you'll keep getting knocked on the head, and then it's the you get smacked over your face. Yeah. And so sometimes the lesson is, oh, I keep choosing this.
Yes.
I keep participating in this crap.
Yeah.
And I'm going to choose differently. And then you're out of you've cut the circle off, and you've chosen a different path. And I think that gratitude is so wrapped up in the good and the bad and the ugly and all of that it allows you to, it's not just I'm so grateful for sunny day, that's important, and I love a sunny day, but I think if you can also really be honest about how can I be grateful for all the stuff that's not going right, it just allows you to kind of just grow, I think, a little bit more and stretch yourself, because I like looking at both sides of the coin, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great. Brilliant. Good question. So, Elissa, to wrap up, thank you very much. So you've had a big year, lots of ups and downs. I think you're certainly
on
the up trajectory at the moment, especially with your plans for the future, which is very exciting. And I look forward to coming to one of your gigs.
Yeah.
What are the top 3 things that you've done for self-care this year? How have you put your needs first this year?
I love this question. And I really hope that it's helpful to, even if it's just helpful to one person, that would make me so happy. So my top 3. My first one is walking. Yeah. Particularly walking in nature, being out in nature. You'll know that. You got me back into my trainers. And it's just, I love how simple it is, but it has just saved me so much to get out of my own head. And there's something really pure about being in nature, and just you see it all around you. It's so obvious, the seasonality and the circular notion of nature, things dying and then harvest and then coming back in the spring. And I find it just kind of resets me and makes me feel reassured that, you know what, everything's okay. Yeah. Things take time. I don't have to have all the answers just yet. It's okay. And it's almost like it's just doing a massive inhale, and I always feel better after a long walk. So that's my first tip.
Excellent.
Second tip is gonna sound on the surface super cliched. It's a bath, right? So, you know, bubble bath, candles, bit of Michael Bublé, whatever you fancy. And Eric Clapton, who's just podcast. But for me, it goes a step beyond that. So I've had issues around my image and around food for a very, very long time. And the simple act of bathing my body is almost the only time that I don't completely hate my body. And I know that sounds really weird, because when you're in the water, it's see-through. You can see every roll, you can see every imperfection that's not quite as toned or less than you want it to be. And because I'm so exposed when I'm in the water, it's so kind of confronting. It's the only time when I can kind of just make peace with it and just kind of honor it and clean it and just lie in the water. And so for me, that ritual has been a really kind of soothing self-care kind of point, where it's like, okay, I'm not happy with where my body is, and I'm still on that journey of accepting it and doing right by it. But I can bathe it, and that's a simple act that, you know, I can do for myself. So that's a bit of a weird second one.
I like that one. I think there's a lot of acceptance in what you're saying. And, you know, as you were talking about that, I was sort of imagining myself in the bath and how I am in the bath. And we do, don't we? Sort of like, I think, you know, when you're putting on, for instance, if you're having a bath, obviously you're giving yourself that time to be with yourself as well. And that you might put on like a nice molten brown scrub, and then you might put a body polisher on. You do it with a sensuality, I guess, for your body, because you're giving that time to yourself. You're bringing out the more, you know, your more premium products, and you've dedicated this time for your physical and your mental self, but it's your physical self more so, because you're going to do the act of actually creaming, and then you'll use the nice moisturizer after. So actually, I think within that there is a level of acceptance in what you're doing, because you're going, I'm going to have this bath, I'm going to give this time for myself. But within that, you're also looking at your body and accepting it as it is, even though you want to make tweaks, fine, but you're still in that moment accepting it as it is, because the bath feels good, right? The good feelings outweigh the negative feelings in that moment. But it would be different if you were trying a mini skirt on and looking in the mirror. At that point, it goes down the negative route.
Well, that's what I love about a bath, because you're not in front of your mirror sucking your tummy in. It's all out there, and it's not the most flattering, and you're like, oh God, I can barely fit in this bath. But that level of kind of, as you say, the intention of kind of taking care or honoring your body and all of that, I just find that's a really simple way to kind of come back to feeling, well, I'm just grateful that I've got arms and legs and skin, and that I can have a bath. And it's just breaking it all down again. I think it's just simple things.
What's your third one then?
Right, the third and final one, I think for me, it's vulnerability. And I say that because my biggest breakthroughs and my most fulfilling relationships are all born out of vulnerability. And I think that it's not something I fully understood until I was in my very, very late 20s, early 30s, just the strength that you feel having just been vulnerable with where you're at, as opposed to trying to reach all these, like we said earlier, all these measurements of success and expectation. Just being like, do you know what? I don't have it all together. I'm still figuring it out. There's going to be more mistakes, and that's fine. And it comes back to, I just think that's a really powerful place to sit yourself in with yourself, right? And so just be it's okay to be vulnerable, and you'll find that most people you know are also thinking the same things, you know, and that's where you can actually have that communal moment and share and realize that everyone is having their own stuff. Everyone's got their own stuff going on as well.
I think when you're sort of, when you're in it, you feel like you're the only person going through it. I mean, I still do it with myself, you know. I feel like, oh, I'm the only one in this zone, or I don't want to trouble that person with it, because they might, you know, have their own stuff, or, you know, they're busy with work or their family or whatever. But actually, they might want that as well. But when you're in it, it's very difficult to come outside of yourself and speak to someone for that help. So I think that's a beautiful one, vulnerability. I think
shouldn't be seen as a weakness. Not at all.
Absolutely not. Just want to ask you one last question. Now, it's going to sound very egotistical, but it's not the reason why I'm asking it. But this is just a kind of, because it's related to growth and not so much gratitude, because I'm not asking for that. But when we worked together, obviously you had an agenda and things happened and changed and stuff transpired, obviously naturally, you know, I think everything was good, like it was just all different. But what was the one thing that you gained from the coaching, just one thing that you feel has, I guess, maybe kept you going this year? Is there anything that stands out from our sessions?
I mean, there's 100 things, Puja. That is a really difficult question.
I thought it was going to be easy. The walk, obviously, because that was I like the way you expanded on the walk. That was beautiful.
I think that from my memory, one of the things that I struggled with first when I came to you was that I had this preconceived notion that it was highly indulgent in my privileged position to even consider working with a life coach on a program and working through stuff. I just thought, that's ridiculous. Like, who the hell do I think I am? I really struggled with that. And you helped me to break that down and realize that even though there's a persona of being super confident and strong and radiant and all together, that's not what's going on under the hood. And it's okay to lift up and have a little look. And I think that was it might not be the thing that you thought I'd say, but for me personally, that was such a valuable insight that it's okay. And actually it's better if you just work through it. Yeah. And I'm such a huge advocate of life coaching and mentorship and all of that kind of stuff, because to think that we have all the answers, we don't.
And we never will.
And that's the beautiful tapestry of life.
And on that cliched note, thank you so much for doing the show, Elissa.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Self-Care 101 podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I would love it if you would subscribe, rate and review so that other people like you can find the show. To find out more about me, you can follow me on the socials at Puja McClymont or visit my website, pujamcclymont.com. Talk to you soon.